Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna...
Hello and welcome, all you friends, neighbors, family, comrades, sisters, and brothers, all you citizens of the world. I'm Michael James. I'm here in Chicago, and we're bringing you another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This one is being recorded on the 18th of January for the week of January 21st. Throughout the course of the show, I'll tell you all the places you can find it. This would be actually number 136 Zooms that we've done since the beginning of the pandemic. Today, I've got three friends. Well, two of them are friends. One of them is going to be a new person. I'm going to talk with Heather Booth, who was the founder of the Janes, or organization back in the day when abortions were illegal. And she's going to be in town for a showing of the film. We're going to have Nick Ward, who was a candidate for the aldermanic position in the 48th Ward. And then Don Rose is going to update us on where the Chicago mayoral race is at, because it's not too far off and there's a lot of activity. When I say not too far off, it's going to be February 28th is the election. And if there's a runoff, it'll be April 4th. I like to start off with something good. I have plenty of not so good news to report, but on the good front, our friend Michael Klonsky, who does that show Hitting Left with the Klonsky brothers. I don't know if both brothers are involved now, but it's on Lumpin' Radio. He also puts out Michael Klonsky's EduPol newsletter, edu/POL. And he just reported that President Biden has said enough is enough. Leonard Peltier should be given clemency. And retired FBI agent Colleen Rowley calls for clemency for indigenous activist who has been in prison for nearly 50 years. He's down there in Florida. He's always denied involvement in the shooting out at Wounded Knee. You know, we've talked a lot about him on the show, and this is just really uplifting. I mean, he's 78 years old. He's not in the best of shape, and we hope he gets out. We'll keep you posted, and thank you, Michael, for posting that, and actually Katie Hogan for sending it to me. Not so good news, Planned Parenthood of Illinois, late Sunday evening, an incendiary device was hurled into the Peoria Health Center, caused a substantial fire. No patients or volunteers were hurt, significant damage. The clinic is inoperable right now. They are looking for support and help. Going to take a number of months. And what they call our attention to is something that's really ongoing all around us these days. Senseless acts of vandalism and violence on the rise around the country, and certainly in the great blue state of Illinois. We've become the target of extreme and divisive, incidents all around the Midwest. Remember a little ways back, we had Dee Gordon and Jane Addams down in Carbondale, and they talked about being in Illinois, where people do have a right to an abortion, where they are surrounded by Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri, three red states. So I want you to be on your toes, because here in Rogers Park, a gay-owned restaurant up there in the Art Public House was a target of a homophobic attack this past week. A man and a woman were getting out of a car. Someone came up to them and yelled homophobic slurs. They went into the Art Public House. The man followed them, was ranting, was asked to leave. He smashed the door with a hammer he had. So we're sorry about that, and we wish the owners, Sandra Carter and Renee Labrana, the best, and all the support that you can give them. So even if we're in a neighborhood or a community where we feel we're in pretty good shape around some of these issues, be aware that there are people everywhere who are not in such a good place. So just be aware what's going on always around you. Let me see. Here in Illinois, last week, good news was we announced that there was a ban on assault weapons. This week, the Sheriff Jeff Bullard from Jefferson County announced that he and other sheriffs were not going to enforce the assault weapons ban. People who have assault weapons had a year to register them, and there are also some suits around it. So this is going to be an ongoing thing, but hopefully our state will remain a place where assault weapons that are really not needed for anything, except if you're in a war, and hopefully we won't be here. We don't need assault weapons. Let me see what else. A little bit more good news. While I was in the locker room, you can all imagine the kind of activity or discussions that go on in locker rooms, or at least purportedly so. But I was at the McGaw-Y, and my friend Larry says, "Hey, did you hear about Jane Schakowsky? She got money for the renovation of the High Ridge YMCA." So I didn't find anything on it. And we reported when the High Ridge Y closed and the loss of the swimming pool and a number of other things. It turns out that Jan Schakowsky facilitated a loan through the community project funding from the House Appropriations Committee. It's FY 2023. It's not a loan, it's federal dollars going directly to the High Ridge Y. And as Jan said, after 70 years of serving the West Ridge community, the High Ridge Y, a community institution, closed its doors last year. The facility was a place for seniors, for children, everyone in between. And she mentions her dog Pippi, P-I-P-P-I, who was trained there. People come together to learn, play, and engage with the community around them. She's ecstatic that she's able to secure the funds to bring the High Ridge Y back to life. That's a good one. Close to home, here on the labor front, Howard Brown Health Center, the workers went out on strike. It's a new union. Howard Brown is claiming it has a $12 million budget gap it has to close. So it has let go 61 workers, and there have been demonstrations around that. And we support the workers, and we hope this can get worked out. Also here in Illinois, here in Chicago, the University of Illinois, Chicago, a lot of people went out on strike the last few days. So we'll keep you posted on that one. On the sports front, we had a lot of sports last week. We did Kayshawn, he's a Navajo professional bull rider. We had him on, and we also had Dave Megacy talking football. We've gotten a lot of good response off this last week's show. So that was enough sports. We're not going to talk too much more about it, except by the time you either watch this on YouTube or listen to it on air or get streamed, you'll know how the Bulls fared in Paris. They're over there. They're playing Thursday night. This airs on Saturday. I did go out to the Bull riding event with my son, Cadian, and we wandered around. We took a lot of pictures. We had media passes. We were right there with the Bulls coming out of the chute, almost crashing against the gate where we were, or the fence. It was quite exciting in a lot of ways. And let me see what else I got. This is an observation for me in watching sports. I've been seeing these ads very well done in black and white. And one of them recently showed a kind of a migrant family, heading north, a lot of trouble where they had lived. And there are beautiful photographs and really well done. And then they're done in black and white. These are compelling stories. And after enduring all this violence and heading north, on the screen comes, Jesus was a refugee. Jesus gets us, all of us. They're really well done. I'm not advocating for anyone to get more religious than they may be, but I'm very impressed with these ads. And we do certainly like churches where they worship Jesus and they care about everyone else. Remember that. If you're really going to follow the teachings of someone like him, really follow them and not use them against others. We'll be right back with our first guest, Heather Booth, and we'll be talking about the movie Jane. It's showing here, and a little bit of what's going on in the freedom of choice movement. Stay tuned here on the left end of your dial.
Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready.
This is Heather Booth. I'm glad to see you, Mike James. You've been a movement partner for so many years, and I'm glad to be with this audience who also are movement partners and care about making this a better world.
Well, right on, sister. And I know you're on a way to an important meeting. The reason I wanted to get you on live from the Heartland is because I know that the movie associated with Jane, or The Service, which you and Marie Linner started back in the day, there's a screening and you're coming to town. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit. Can you tell people what Jane was?
Uh, in 1965, a friend asked me to find someone who could provide an abortion for his sister who is nearly suicidal. She just wasn't ready to have a child. I didn't really know about what to do, but with connections I had from the civil rights movement, I found a doctor, Dr. T.R.M. Howard, who actually had a clinic on 63rd Street called Friendship Clinic. He was a great civil rights leader, but I didn't know any of that at the time. He provided the procedure. I thought that was a one-time friend, helping friend. But word spread. And as other women came through and more, he decided to call this underground network of providing abortions Jane, because 3 people in 1965, 3 people talking about providing an abortion was a conspiracy to commit a felony. And so Jane went on for a number of years. More people came in. We had another provider after Dr. Howard was no longer available. And the women of Jane learned how and provided 11,000 abortions themselves between 1965 and 1973, when Roe became the law of the land. And for those who want to learn more about the true story, the documentary, there's an HBO documentary called The Janes. It's quite remarkable. Emma,
Is that the original film?
It's the documentary. It's the original. It's a documentary, and Emma Pildis and Tia Lesson are the producers of the film. By the way, it's shortlisted for an Academy Award, so who knows? It's getting some recognition. But there's going to be a screening in Chicago where it all started on Thursday, January 26th at 6:30 p.m. Thursday, January 26th at the Max Polevsky Cinema at Ida Noyes Hall, 1212 East 59th Street. There's no cost to attend, but you do need to reserve a seat because the seats are going quickly and it may fill up. Thursday, January 26th at 6:30, the Max Polevsky Cinema at Ida Noyes Hall, 1212 East 59th Street. The YWCA of Metropolitan Chicago is sponsoring it with the Chicago Foundation for Women and now many other groups. Mike, I think you'll make the link available.
We're going to show that on the screen as well as announcing it. And people should know that there'll be a discussion after the movie with both you and Marie Lerner.
Leaner.
I misspelled it here, but say hi to Mickey. I know her from way back.
Yeah.
And, the film will be shown. There'll be a panel discussion or a discussion with you two and Natalie Moore of WBEZ. And will you tell the listeners there was another film that came out on the topic, a Hollywood film. I don't know if it's good, bad.
There's another one with Sigourney Weaver that's come out, and the name of that is Call Jane. And that I think you can get streaming now. And it gives a culturally accurate sense of the times. And this is the documentary. This is the inside and true version. I hope to see some of you there. I'll be returning to Chicago. I haven't lived there for many years, but I love to come back. Would love to see some of my longtime friends and new friends who are partners in this movement. January 22nd is the 50th anniversary of when Roe became the law of the land. There's now this dreadful pushback that's threatening women's lives and threatening the lives of so many people on the most intimate decision of our lives about when or whether or with whom we have a child. And so I hope you'll come, be part of this struggle, show up for the Women's March on January 22nd, and hope to see you on January 26th.
Heather Booth,
Idaho Falls.
I'll let you go, but before you go, just give us a little bit on where do we stand in the fight for choice, given what happened with Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court, and where should people direct their energies? What should they be doing now?
We're on a knife's edge between freedom and authoritarian rule, but we can push back. We showed that in the last elections, but it's about elections. We have to prepare for 2024, but it's beyond that. There's now Supreme Court elections in Wisconsin, nearby to Illinois, and we encourage people to be part of that. We need funding for that race. In Illinois, we have become kind of a sanctuary state.
Yes,
but we've got to keep it strong. There are wonderful groups in Illinois working on this issue. There are various centers providing services nationally. There's National Abortion Fund. There's Pro-Choice Illinois. There's mayoral and Planned Parenthood. Nationally, there's a group called Sister Song with a focus on Black women, especially in the South. But wherever you decide to put your efforts, I encourage 4 M's that you do members, you recruit people and others. You alone are not enough, but you are terrific, but with others, members, that you share the message. You spread out this message. Hope to see you January 22nd, as well as January 26th to see the film, The Janes, at Ida Noyes Hall. Money, we need your funds. There needs to be support for the great organizations and movement. Show up. Be there or be square, as they used to say. So
okay, all you
January
listeners,
26th, Ida Noyes Hall.
all you listeners out there, listen to what Heather has to say. There's a lot of work to do. She's been in the forefront of the struggle for many years. Heather, I'm so glad I could catch you on your way to some important meeting that you're going to.
Mike.
Keep moving it to the left, dear.
Thanks. All the best to all of you. Glad to be your partner in this struggle for freedom.
Right
Bye-bye.
on. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland here on the left end of your dial or youtube.com/heartlandmedia/videos. All kind of ways you can get the show. We'll tell you more about that later. And we'll be back with our next guest in just a moment.
Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna...
We're back with more Live from the Heartland for the week of January 25th. I'm Michael James, and I hope you had a nice little break between our previous guest, Heather Booth. But now we're bringing on someone who I don't know, but I'm looking forward to knowing him, although he might have been a customer at the Heartland Cafe back in the day. So our paths certainly have crossed. And a lot of people I'm running into, all my old comrades, sisters and brothers, they're liking this guy. His name is Nick Ward, and he is a candidate for the aldermanic position in the 48th Ward in the great city of Chicago in the county of Cook. Good morning to you, brother.
Good morning. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And, you know, like I said before we got on live here, the Heartland Cafe was really a meaningful place for me as a young person new to Chicago. So thank you for all of that.
That was part of the goal, was we were going to turn people on to good things and promote the causes. And, you know, when we opened it, it wasn't as much about healthy food as having a place where we could develop cadre or organizers out of. So, you know, we wanted people to have be able to serve the community, make a living, and do political work. Later, we would say their art, their family, etc. Enough of that. You're the guy, you're running, you have these real nice orange and black signs all over the 48th Ward, I've been noticing as I cruise around town. We could talk a little bit about you, but I'm gonna let you do that. Let's start off with you talking about the 48th Ward, where it is, who lives there, what goes on, what are the issues?
Yeah. Okay. So I know that there's some folks who follow the show who maybe aren't in Chicago. So I'll kind of, you know, make sure that we understand what we're talking about here. So if you're looking at a map of Chicago, you know, put your eyes northward and towards the lake, and you'll find the 48th Ward. So it encompasses a couple of different neighborhoods, parts of Uptown on the southern end, and then it runs through all the way up to Devon Avenue and encompasses a lot of Edgewater. And then it also takes a little bit of this business district called Andersonville which is this, small, like localized businesses, kind of walkable community. So the ward itself is pretty distinct. It's one of the most socioeconomically diverse wards in Chicago. We've got corridors, the corridor that I live on called the Kenmore-Winthrop corridor, which is a mixture of like large apartment buildings as well as some condo buildings. We've got the architectural vernacular known as the 4+1s, which I have a soft spot for. What that means is parking on the kind of ground, the basement floor with 4 floors above it. And then if you go east along the lakefront, that's primarily condo buildings. So there's these large high-rise condo buildings that run along the lakefront with gorgeous views. I was in one last night for a supporters meet and greet, and just beautiful, beautiful opportunity to see the lake. And then when we turn our attention west, which for Chicago listeners is going to be west of Broadway, we've got a collection of single-family homes, as well as anywhere from 2 to 3 to 6 and 8 flats. Again, the kind of classic Chicago architectural vernacular. But the people who live in the ward are working class people. It's long been a place where restaurant workers, nurses, artists, teachers could settle, rent affordably or afford to own sustainably, and really make a life for themselves. That is becoming a little bit more difficult, as it is everywhere, and so one of the biggest parts of this campaign is really thinking through how we make sure that the ward remains affordable for everyone, and that intersects with so many things. We have great schools in the ward, but because of the way that funding is structured, great schools have to have students in them. We need to make sure that our schools are fully funded, fully enrolled, to be able to make sure that we can support them. And so that's part of what we're looking at right now here in the ward. And then one thing I'll say too, that it doesn't really get brought up, I think, a lot when we talk about the 48th ward, but we've got some real infrastructure challenges. And right now, the CTA is building a new red line. It's called the CTA RPM project. RPM stands for Red Purple Modernization. So it's taking some of the old CTA infrastructure that's 100 years old and updating it so it doesn't fall apart, which is a huge project, and it's really exciting. When it's going to be completed, it will be a fully modernized, public transit arm. But another thing that we have is we've basically got a couple highways that run through the ward. And that presents a lot of challenges for the people who live in this community. Challenges related to traffic and congestion, challenges related to people being able to feel like they can safely walk across the street. And so that's something that, it is really prominent here in the ward, and it's really distinct, and it's something that we all have to work on, and that's what I'm excited to work on. Yeah, sorry, I went long.
Well, that's good. I like it when people ramble on. Which highways are you talking about? Are you talking about Ashland Avenue? You're talking about Clark Street? You're talking about Broadway? You're talking about Lakeshore Drive?
Yeah, so basically we're talking about, so Lakeshore Drive, slices up the lakefront. It ends in the 48th ward, and then there are access points that get commuters to Broadway. And then there's also Ridge Avenue. So Ashland isn't in the ward, but Ridge kind of slices right through the community. And when I talk to folks, especially the folks who live on Ridge or near Ridge, the number one thing that I hear from our neighbors is how afraid they are of how fast the cars can go. And
I think cars in general are driving awful fast, and somebody on the show recently talked about maybe on Lakeshore Drive to Saville Drive, we should slow down the speeds. We could even probably fund a lot of things if we started giving out tickets.
Yeah,
enough on the traffic for now.
We could spend all day on traffic.
We could. And I always have a suggestion that for bus routes that don't operate on the weekend where they have no parking signs, they should be open it up for parking on the weekends. So remember that if you're the next alderman over there.
Yeah, I'll remember that.
You know, there's a number of people running for that slot. I think there's up to 9 or 10 people. And we always liked Harry Osterman. We didn't necessarily agree on everything, but we went way back. And he has retired and he's endorsed somebody else. But I haven't heard, I've heard people say there are a lot of good candidates. Why don't you give us a brief thing on the opposition? Who's on the right? Who's on the left? Why you?
Well, hey, you know, I'm not allowed to talk about my opponents, you know, in any sort of disparaging way. I mean,
okay,
you know, and I don't want to, honestly. You know, I think we see each other all the time. There are 9 other people who are running, and you know, it is really difficult to be in this race. It's difficult to run for alderperson in Chicago with the, you know, the historical legacy of the Chicago politics behind us and influencing how that works. So I have a great respect for everyone who's in this race.
That's really great to hear. That's the kind of thing that we should have elections, and particularly in Chicago in our wards, where we have great people running against each other, and it'll all evolve to even a better and better situation.
Yeah, I think that, you know, everybody has a deep love for this community and this ward. And so I have as somebody who also has a deep love for this community and this ward, I have to respect that. You know, I think that I'm the best for this role for a couple of different reasons. Because I think that, you know, right now in the 21st century in Chicago, I think that an alderperson does 3 things. Hopefully they do them all well. You know, here in Chicago, we have ward services is really important. That's distinct from other cities. You know, it's making sure that the streetlights stay on, the trash gets picked up, you know, the trees get trimmed, you know, making sure that constituents get the things that they need every day. And then it's also making sure that the policy that gets set downtown and that impacts every person is really, you know, well translated out into the community. You know, so an alderperson has to really understand not only the intricacies of the policy, but how to communicate it to their constituents. And then finally, I think the most important thing is that our alderperson has to have really the right values to make sure that we're supporting our most vulnerable neighbors. You know, low-income people, homeless neighbors, folks facing a lot of challenges related to maybe mobility or job access. You know, that alderperson has to make sure that we're really supporting those folks. And I think of all the 10 people running, I do that. All 3 of those things I bring together more than anybody else.
That's good, Nick Ward. I like a confident candidate.
Yeah.
So what I'd like you to do now is to shift a little bit and tell us about yourself. I know that you come out of Detroit. I know that, which is a wonderful city.
Yeah.
With plenty of issues, some like us, but also some great cultural history up there and
Absolutely.
labor history, et cetera, et cetera. I know your parents were school teachers.
Yeah.
And union members.
Yep.
I know that you busted your ass bussing tables, waiting on tables, being in theater, doing that kind of thing. You sound like a lot of the employees we used to have at the Heartland.
Yeah.
I'm finishing my degree. I'm in a play next week. I'm working on my book. I have an art show going on. I got a kid coming, whatever it may be. But you tell us about you.
Hey, that's great. And I you know, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I'm from the suburbs outside of Detroit. You know, I think it's important to understand because of the historical legacy of, you know, the segregation of the Detroit metro area to really be specific. You know, I'm actually not.
Oh, that's good.
Not from Detroit proper. I am from the suburbs outside of Detroit. My parents were public school teachers. I went to public school from all the way up until like into college. And then I moved to Chicago where I spent many, many years pursuing theater and working in restaurants. So I probably worked in, I don't know, 15 different Chicago restaurants. There's only one of them that's still open, unfortunately. But I spent a lot of time, really, working alongside and with, folks who were really struggling, working with bussers and food runners who had to work multiple jobs, working off of tips, and that has its own precarity, and doing a lot of un and underpaid theater work. And so I moved here to be an actor. I wasn't much of an actor, but I was pretty good at a bunch of different things. So I did some casting work, did some production management. I joined a storytelling organization that I'm still a part of called Second Story. I did write a book. I've taught classes, and I've spent just a lot of time really steeped in Chicago's artistic and cultural community. And that's what really kind of formed my thinking about how this city can better support, arts and culture workers,
I like the idea of a restaurant worker being in office, because having run a restaurant for 36 years, I know how difficult it is, and how people in whatever position you're in, whether you're the dishwasher, the busboy, the janitor, the servers or the waiters to the waiters, the kitchen workers, whether it be prep to the head cook, you got to juggle a lot of stuff. You got to be able to take it as it comes, and deal with it immediately while you're doing a bunch of other things. So I've never really talked about that before, but I'm sure there are plenty of former restaurant workers who do hold office, but you might be another one.
Yeah, and you're all working on a shared project together, and I think I didn't know that I was a community organizer for so many years until I had some folks really point out that, working in restaurants and working in the arts and, bringing people together around shared projects has a natural entry point into community organizing, and I think that's work that I was doing for 16 years before 16 years before I really got involved in local politics.
Well, Nick, what's this book about that you wrote?
Oh, well, I wrote a book of personal essays, came out about a year and a half ago. Like I said before, I'm a company member with Second Story. We tell live true stories. And so a lot of the stories from the book began as personal tales told on stages and in restaurants and bars around Chicago. So, very proud of that. I don't anticipate to be writing another book anytime soon, but hey, you never know how this will go and what stories I might have to share, after it's over.
Well, storytelling is a great thing, whether it's in a book or in person. I know we used to do it at the No Exit one time. An author named Jeff Biggers was in town, and he had me. I told a story about driving my 40 Ford Coupe to California in 1960, and I won't go into it because it's a long story. But your storytelling is good. I have a daughter who teaches at DePaul, Koya Paz. She tells stories sometimes.
Wait,
and, Koya?
Yeah, I know Koya.
That's my daughter.
Whoa, I did not know that. How did I not know that? Yeah,
she may not tell everybody. Who knows?
I've worked with Koya on Second Story projects, so I know her well.
Oh, that's great to hear.
All right.
That's good. So let me ask you, as we close out, Nick Ward, what would be one of the first 1, 2, 3 things that you would want to see happen or do if you had the ability to do it in the city council and in our city?
Yeah, so definitely we want to make sure that a couple of ordinances right now that don't have the support that they need get the support that they need. So the first 2 that come to mind are Bring Chicago Home, which is really being pushed by a lot of unions and other progressive PACs to make sure that we're systematically addressing homelessness in our communities by building permanent supportive housing.
Right.
The other is Treatment Not Trauma, which would seek to reopen the closed public mental health clinics and expand those operations where possible across the city, so that folks experiencing mental health crises have public options, for them to really address their needs. And then, in my ward, one of the things that I would love to see is a greater investment from the city and the community in youth programs. Not necessarily relying on, though I love our area nonprofits, but not necessarily solely relying on them. So I would love to see something that happened this past summer down in Pilsen in the 25th Ward. I would love to have some sort of basketball tournament or basketball league where kids could come together and play and compete in a safe and productive way, and really, activate the lakefront community with just some exciting energy. So that would be like, a little bit more of the nebulous one I'd like to see.
I like that. I'm in this group, Athletes United for Peace. We'll talk about that more. I want to wish you well, no matter where this election takes you. And I'm going to ask you one last thing. Who do you look to for advice? In other words, can you give us a little insight into your little central committee or steering committee for your campaign?
Well, my campaign is, I'm so proud to have been really supported by a number of incredible organizers here in the 48th Ward. My campaign manager went to Georgetown Law School, successfully ran an operation for Mary Oshana in Skokie, and just keeps me, grounded and on point every single day. My field director, Miracle Jenkins, comes to us from the Progressive Turnout Project in Georgia. He's just joined the team and is activating our 200 volunteers. And then I have this incredible kitchen cabinet that is full of, CTU members, other organizers in the community, folks who have worked in the arts and nonprofits, and there's just so much support for me from the campaign side. And then I'm really proud that I've been endorsed by a couple of elected officials to the west of me. So Carlos Ramirez Rosa, alderman of the 35th Ward, Daniel Espada, alderman of the 1st Ward, and a newly elected Cook County Commissioner, Anthony Joel Quesada, have all endorsed me. And so I look to them for guidance, and I'm really excited and proud to work together with them.
Well, Nick Ward, you're a hell of a guy. I think you have a good future, and I look forward to hanging out with you in person.
All right.
Watching all the things you do in your life.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you all. Have a good rest of the day.
Okay, brother. And everybody stay tuned for more Live from the Heartland. Following Nick Ward, we've got the incomparable Don Rose, a longtime political analyst, and we're going to talk about our future mayor, whoever it may be.
Oh, have fun with that.
Right back with more Live from the Heartland, here on the left end of your dial.
Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna...
You're listening to the Live from the Heartland show. You might be watching the Live from the Heartland show. We're here for the week of January 25th, recording on the 18th. And I'm really honored now to bring on once again our perennial electoral analyst, the one and only Chicago's very own Don Rose. Good morning to you, Don.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. You've always been the guy I go to for the information on who's running and who's good and who's going to win. And you've hit it every time except that one time that a lot of us missed a few years back in 2016. So let's not go there. Let's just talk about the great opportunity that we have here in Chicago to elect a mayor, perhaps a new mayor.
It's a two-stage operation, most likely, and that is because the first round is February 28th, a Tuesday, of course, and if there are 9 candidates running, which makes it very hard for anybody to get 50% plus one. Assuming nobody gets 50% plus one, the top 2 candidates will run off against each other for the top job on March 6th. That's 6 weeks, a 6-week campaign from first round to second round. And most of the candidates, many of the candidates are fairly well known. And the lineup, of course, reflects name recognition and general positions. We have, of course, Lori Lightfoot running for re-election. We have Chuy Garcia, Jesus Chuy Garcia, congressman and former alderman and state senator and county commissioner. who is running and currently leading the field. I want to make sure when I talk about the positions they're in now, I really want to say that they are still largely based on name recognition, and the situation is somewhat fluid. But for the past several weeks, ever since the official start, this is where they are. So we've got Lori and Chuy Garcia. Then we have Paul Vallis, the one-time CEO of the schools here in Chicago, and who was run for governor and a few others. He ran for mayor 4 years ago and did not do very well at all, but I think he is positioning himself very well at the moment. I could talk about him in a minute.
Yeah, we will.
The other candidates, the well-known now, I think, Willie Wilson, the eccentric millionaire who passes out gasoline cards and cash to folks and has been a leading figure in the Black community because of this. He is getting, has a lot of recognition among Blacks and a lot of favorables. Then we go into the guy who should be, who is most likely to be rising from relative obscurity, and that's Brandon Johnson, who is both a member and an organizer for the Chicago Teachers Union. He has their endorsement. He is a county commissioner, a very eloquent guy known for his speech making. And he has the support of a couple of other progressive unions and a lot of money. And he is on television a lot. People who watch TV, I'm sure, have seen these very short 13 to 15-second commercials that say Brandon Johnson is going to, has a good plan for the schools and business and crime. He's a good man for Chicago, just like that, which I think is getting him known. We haven't seen any results in the polls as yet, but because of the combination of the TV he's getting and the support of these unions, he is certainly going to get more than the low single digits that he's getting at the moment. So I think we have to consider him a potential contender, right up there with Vallis, who is the only white candidate and has the support of the police union. So he is.
Oh, what a surprise!
He is probably the consider, and the business community. He's on the air with some money from the business community, so he's got a lot going for him beyond the personality that never went anywhere. So I would say those are the contenders at the moment. We have several aldermen, two aldermen, Rod Sawyer, whose father was once named mayor by the city council. He was the only unelected Black mayor we had. And we have Sophia King of the 4th Ward, very close to Attorney Preckwinkle, another very progressive alderman. We're saying alderperson these days, I guess.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Got to do that. My pronouns are who and what. And
let me ask you while we're moving along here. We got a list of all these candidates. I had a couple questions came to mind. One would be, do you think that Chuy would have gotten, if he had announced earlier he was going to run, do you think he would have gotten CTU, and would Brandon Johnson have gotten in the race?
Well, the likelihood is they would have endorsed Chuy. However, they have been planning to run Brandon Johnson for 4 years. 4 years ago, they were offering their endorsement to the candidate which included 4 years ago, Chewy was not running, but Laurie was running and Preckwinkle was running, as you will recall. And they were offering their endorsement to the candidate who would agree to run only one term and then endorse Brandon. They want one of their own to be the chosen one here, which is an interesting and debatable kind of issue, even to a supporter of the Chicago Teachers Union. So they say that they named him because Chewy would not give them a date or say for sure he was running. I would say that it is still somewhat iffy because they have been planning. He's been their not so secret weapon for 4 years. But I will take them at their word that they did it because Chewy would not say for sure whether he was running or not.
Why do you think Chewy decided to get in the race when he's a congressman and getting, he's getting pretty well known on a lot of levels, and he's been kind of a kingmaker for local elections, various alder people and state representatives, et cetera. Why do you think he decided to make this move to get in, kind of seemingly at the last minute?
Well, the best thing I can say is that a certain generation or two or three of Chicagoans who lived through the Richard J. Daley era and saw the power and the strength that he wielded often look upon the mayoralty of Chicago as a higher calling than being a congressman. We've had congressmen come back to be aldermen. The famous Roman Puczynski was a congressman who yearned to have a city job because alderman might lead to mayor. So we make light of this, but a lot of congressmen. There's another point there. If the Democrats had won the House of Representatives, and he could have been part of a working majority there, he says, I think, pretty clearly that he would not have run, and that because we lost power, we being the Democrats, although I consider myself an independent, because he's in a minority position and is not going to be able to get much done, and this job, he could run for mayor and lose and still be a congressman.
Yeah.
So it's like a free opportunity. He didn't have to give up anything. A lot of people question it, though. It's a legitimate question. Why would you give that up to be mayor? It's the same reason many people give up being senator to run for governor. They think they can actually do more in that position than being part of a 200 and some member minority.
Don Rose, first I want to once again remind people that the election is February 28th. If someone doesn't get 50% plus one, it's April 4th is the runoff. I wanted to raise a question that I'm not getting a lot of response from people on about, some of us in the city pride ourselves on a kind of a rainbow coalition that helped elect Harold Washington, certainly Obama in some ways, where you're talking Black, white, Latinos, et cetera, working together. We saw a rift in the city council in LA between African Americans and Latinos. And I'm just wondering if how you see that we have candidates that are Black, white, and Latino, how that plays out. Can we keep it civil? It doesn't seem like Lori Lightfoot's, she's going after Chewy already, and not in a nice way. I'm just wondering your thoughts on the different ethnicities and races running against each other and how we keep it civil.
Well, other than Laurie's smear attacks on Chewy, which we can go into, but it's kind of complicated, it has been civil so far. The people are attacking Chewy not in a an evil way, but just the kind of question. You're a congressman. Why did you decide at the last minute to come in? Blah blah blah. So that's a legitimate question and a legitimate attack. There are two other African American candidates that I didn't mention, but it's worth pointing out. We have Cam Buckner, who is a very progressive state senator based in the Hyde Park area, the same area that Sophia King is. And we have Jamal Green, who is the youngest candidate, 27 years old, very creative guy, but his only experience is organizing demonstrations. And I think he's got a very good future. He shouldn't be starting at the top. He'd be, I think, a great alderman, with his ideas and where he is. I have a lot of respect for him, but I think he ain't ready for prime time yet. So anyway, the thing here is that the Black community is very divided here. We have Laurie has a base in it. Some people think that that's her biggest base. Willie Wilson got a lot of votes last time, and it seems to be getting them in the polls now. He is either the first or second largest accumulator of Black votes. Cam Buckner will get Black votes. Sophia King will get Black votes. Rod Sawyer will get Black votes. Jamal will get Black votes. The largest portions, of course, at the moment, and Brandon Johnson. So the Black vote is well scattered. Some activists are trying to get that, talk a few people to drop out of the race because it means that it's possible that there will not be a Black candidate in the runoff.
The runoff will be from the two highest receivers of votes. Let's switch to Vallis, because we haven't talked about him a lot. What makes him run? How did he, in his early days in the school, in working in schools, he was the superintendent of schools or whatever the technical term is. I knew some people, progressives who worked for him, they used to like him. He seemed to shift, he got into charter schools. He went to other cities. He kind of failed a bunch of places. He's come back and has positioned himself pretty much as a kind of more conservative, law and order oriented guy. Talk a little bit about him.
Well, his best race was back in, I think, 2002 or thereabouts, when he was running for governor. He came in, third, but close in that race that Blagojevich won, and Roland Burris came in second. He is basically a budget guy. He's a very smart budget guy, whether you agree with, everything he has to say. You've got to respect him as a budget guy. My feeling is he should not have been made the head of schools. He fell into the trap of what they were calling at the time education reform, which relied on expanding charter schools and high stakes testing. This did not endear him to the teachers union, to progressives such as myself, who really found them anti-public school and anti-student. Much rather, build a better public education system than deplete it with charter schools. But that's an old argument, but it's one he fell into, and I think he fell into it and embraced it strongly because he was not really an educator. And he became interested in furthering his power. He ran for governor, and then he started running for different offices. He left Chicago. He left a school system that was not much better than when he took it over. I frankly was not wild about Arnie Duncan in that same position later. Because it was the same problem. A decent guy, but not an educator, and fell back into the trap of so-called education reform. That's a whole other issue. You can be pretty sure that if Chewy wins, if Brandon Johnson wins, even if Lori wins, we're not going to go back into that in our school system. So that being said,
well, Don, we're gonna run out of time. Let me just I've invited you already, and I think you agreed that in the next couple of weeks you'll come on again and give us some analysis of where the race is at. We look forward to that. And who would you predict are the two highest vote getters in this February 28th election?
I believe they will be Chewy Garcia and Paul Vallis at the moment. I think Lori has hurt herself more and will likely wind up in third, conceivably even fourth place, but I think third place. And Vallis, by virtue of being the conservative, the white with that conservative base in Chicago and some money, will overcome his personality defects that have kept him in low digits previously.
Don Rose, thanks a lot. You're always great to hear. I like seeing you. I like seeing you in person too. I miss that. It's been a little bit of time. Let's do that. I want to tell everybody out there that we're going to be back next week. And next week, we're going to have a report from Brian Meir in Brazil. And then Dave Kraft from the Nuclear Energy Information Service will also be on. And I want to thank everybody who makes this show possible. I want to thank our guests who came on today. That would be Heather Booth. That would be Don Rose. And who was my other guest? Nick Ward, a candidate for the 48th Ward aldermanic position. Thank you to everyone over at WLUW, our home base, to Katie Hogan, Tom Clark, and Hal James. I hope you all have a great week. Do good in the world. The world needs all the good that we do. All power to the people. Thanks a lot. Next week.
Are you doing the best you can? Over the mountain, under the big blue sky, you got a dream awaiting. I can see it in your eye. It may not come easy, but you know you've got a friend. I'll be by your side the entire ride. Just let me hear you say amen. Are you doing? Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you doing? Are you doing the best you can? Tout donne, est-ce que tu donnes le meilleur de toi-même parce que tu l'aimes? Tu donnes, est-ce que tu donnes le meilleur de toi-même si tu l'aimes? Tu donnes, est-ce que tu donnes le meilleur de toi-même quand tu l'aimes? Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you doing?